afternoon. I'm Alexis Devlin.
I'm Sjobom.
And we are both juniors at Catawba College. And we will be presenting on a class that we had in the fall of 2021 called The Divided Soul of America. So our presentation topic is irrevocably broken or mendable. Is the soul of America fixable? So this class was taught by the very own Dr. J. Michael Bitzer. He's a great professor. He's one of the leading political scientists in the state of North Carolina. And a lot of his discussions and what he teaches right now is based on polarization. So that's mainly what the class was about. In the class itself, we discussed 4 main questions throughout the entirety of the semester, including what makes up the soul of America, the identities that impact America, how we got to this level of division, and if anything can be done to repair this division.
So to answer these 4 questions, we discussed a lot with our group as well as read books on these topics. And some of the books that we read was The Soul of America, Identity Politics, The Upswinging, and Uncivil Agreement. And all of these questions culminated into a big final paper at the end of the year.
38 pages. So the first book that we read was The Soul of America by John Meacham, and this was to answer the question, what makes up the soul of America? For many people, there is different questions on it, but there is one soul of America, but there's multiple meanings to the soul.
So just to pick up where Lex left off, the soul of America is inevitably just like what is at the core of America. And Meacham argues in his novel that Meacham's idea of the soul is that America is a melting pot that is full of prejudice. It's inconsistent. There's an us versus them mentality, but there's also lots of room for growth, and there's constantly evolving.
So what our conclusions were brought up for this question when we originally wrote the first essay, many of us picked freedom, the ideals of the founding fathers, the American dream, but we also picked up on that the individual in America, the people that make up America, are an integral part of the soul. Along with that, democracy as well as changing and protest. We've been protesting since the quite literal birth of our nation, and from that point we have continued to do so.
Okay, so the next question that we covered in class was, what does it mean to be an American, and how does our identity impact what that means? And so we read a book by Kalila Brown Dean, and that book was all about identity politics. And identity politics is basically how you associate yourself in the groups you associate yourself with, because we oftentimes stick in groups together and we don't like to hear outsiders' point of views, and that makes up a lot of who we are. So we define identity as the fact of being who or what a person or thing is, or a close similarity or affinity to.
So pretty much identity how we view our identity changes how we view the world. And so different types of identities include like your citizenship status, your gender, your religion, your race, your party identification, which is super important right now in American politics, as well as your ethnicity. And while identity is an important thing for us and how we identify, it also has repercussions which lead to identity politics.
So these 2 charts or graphs were made by the Pew Research Center. The one on the left side of your screen is all about how far we've come on gender equality. And as you can see, there's some discrepancy in the numbers, and it shows that women and Democrats typically tend to feel that there hasn't been enough done with gender equality yet, while their counterparts, males and Republicans, either think that we're at a good space with gender equality or it's gone a little bit too far in some cases.
So with the chart on the right, it shows they've taken individuals from a study and they've looked at the God gap, which is the growing divide between generations as well as groups of individuals on how much they go to church and how that affects their identity in politics. So in the top, it just shows like the general view, and it shows that most of the time Republicans are the ones going to church the most. Following that one is white people. That sounded very weird when I said it that way. And how they attend services as well, showing again that most of them that attend more often are usually voting Republican, followed by Black non-Hispanic people, and they attend church around the same amount as those who don't, but it shows they're overwhelmingly Democratic.
So our next question is, okay, we all have different identities, but how do we get to this level of division in America? And the answer to that is, in 1950, there was actually an article put out by the Committee on Political Parties, and that was asking for political parties to become more responsible. During this time, it was coming out of the Great Depression, all the political parties wanted the same thing. They were all wanting to increase the economy and get people what they needed to be helped. And the committee was tired of seeing two political parties that were identical in their foundation. So they called for parties to pick a side, and the parties responded, and they did that. And since then, we've seen the polarization that we've come to today. And so we define polarization as differences on policy issues, ideological orientation, or value systems.
So with this division is inherently like something that humans do. We divide into groups all the time. I mean, there's like the high school, think like jocks, nerds, those are groups. Some of these groups are super important to us, like race, our religion, but also these groups divide us in arbitrary ways as well. We see each other as competing groups, us versus them, and Democrats and Republicans see each other as such. There's a winning side and a losing side, and for one to win, the other has to lose. But as an American people, we're one group together. So here just shows like the difference in the groups themselves on polarization. So the red is the entire Republican, not the entire, but for the Republican Party, blue is the Democratic Party, and this green are stressed sideliners. So people who sit in the middle who are just stressed out. And there's a lot of people. Here it just shows each of these groups, the progressive left all the way to faith and flag conservatives, have different orientations, ideologies, and values that change how they vote and how they perceive other people. And on the right here, you can see how diametrically opposed these groups are. Progressive left are so far away from the faith and flag conservatives, and there seems to be no middle ground for them.
So just to back up no middle ground even more, this is the last two general elections here in the state of North Carolina. On the left is 2016, and on the right is 2020. And normally, when you have a graph, there's a normal distribution, and most of the stuff's in the middle, and there's outliers. But in this case, the majority is the outliers. We have a normal curve in the middle of that graph. That's the pattern the graph should have taken based off of voting, but we are so divided that if you try to split the ballot, it's seen as like losing. You need to vote one side or the other, and we can see that in our general elections the past two cycles. So that leads us to our final question. What, if anything, can be done to address this divide? And one thing that we read about in the books that we read was the Great Convergence in the 1960s. And I want to preface this by saying that no era is perfect, and the 1960s definitely wasn't either. But during the 1960s, researchers saw a time of economic, political, cultural, and societal prosperity. Everybody was closer during these times, voting-wise, in the 1960s. And the researchers followed up with that and researched these 4 categories now, and we are actually the farthest we've ever been in all 4 of these categories. So one way that we can get back is to try and rekindle this great convergence to get high up in these prosperities again.
Specific ways that we could bridge the division between the groups are with political togetherness, working together on politics with each other, not seeing us versus them, coming together and finding actual solutions to problems that Americans are facing in this country. Another is switching from individual thought to community thought. A lot of times America is I versus like we. And with that, we need to think about how we're affecting other people with our choices. Another is the reform of the political parties, which I feel like a lot of people bring up all the time. It's probably not doable, but with that would also mean the reform of elections. Political parties here, we have the two-party system. It just does not work, plain and simple. It is probably the worst system that has ever been set up in the entirety of political agendas. Even George Washington said not to do that whatsoever. But with the reform of that, having a 3-party system or multiple parties and having proportional representation would be the best way to fix this. Say that there's a green party, a purple party, just going off the colors right now, but there's like 7 different parties. You find the one that you feel closely aligned with, and then in elections, you're voting for proportional representation. So it's not a winner takes all. It's whoever. So say 30% of this group votes for this person. They get this many people. 70% here, and that's how we break it down. There's also the bottom-up versus top-down approach, which would mean putting in moderates into offices and helping to bring them up to a level where we are able to uplift them and see that working together is the beneficial route here. And the last would be reforming the Senate. Obviously, we see how the Senate works, not well at all, but boosting the majority and helping to fix that would lead to progress within our political system. So, can we fix the broken soul? Yes, but we have to realize that it is broken. We have to realize that we have to come together for it, and we have to set up tasks in order to fix the problem. Honestly, at the end of the class, everyone pretty much said this wasn't doable, which is very sad. We had a very sad time in class, but we can do it. But as a collective and as one American people, we have to come up with it. Theodore Roosevelt said in one of our last books that we go up as America and we go down as America all together. So we must figure out how to do it. Thank you.